What is up, Concussion Discussion listeners? Thank you guys for joining me. I hope your day was a little bit better than mine. It is Tuesday, May 22nd. Long day for me. I had to drive 5.5 hours for a 20-minute ceremony. It was one of my soldiers. He went to his first leaders course, so I had to be there for that. It was good to see him grow in his career and such. But yeah, man, a 20-minute ceremony for almost a 6-hour drive wasn't ideal, but hey, you got to be there for your people. But anyways, what we're actually here to talk about is mixed martial arts. It's my favorite thing to talk about. So this episode, we're going to talk UFC Chile, do the recap of that. I've got an interview with David Feldman. You guys might have seen this on social media. Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. It is the first legalized and sanctioned bare knuckle fighting in the United States, and they make their debut on pay-per-view June 2nd. We're going to talk UFC Liverpool, of course. That's coming up this Sunday, not Saturday, this Sunday, likely because of the long weekend is what I'm assuming. And then we are going to talk Bellator 200. So as I've stated before in the John Fitch interview, I need to do better when it comes to talking about Bellator. And it's a big card. Their main event, Roy Nelson versus Mirko Krokop, got pulled off the card. But, what do you do? That happens. Krokop got injured. You can't control that stuff. So let's get into this thing. I suppose I'll stop talking about nonsense. So there were some decent fights. I guess we'll start from the bottom. So the first fight of the night, this is Puelles versus Silva. The first round was close. The second round, Silva was beating his ass pretty good. And Puelles goes back to his corner, and they said, stand up with him. Don't try to take him down. And the only success, I actually had Puelles winning the first round, and then Silva definitely winning the second. But, I was just surprised that his coaches said, go out there and don't try and grapple with him, because I thought he won that battle in the first round. But anyways, that is probably my comeback of the year thus far in the UFC this year, because in the third round, Silva knocks him down, I believe twice, just kind of beats his ass, and then Puelles pulls off, I believe it was a knee bar. It was beautiful. It made me absolutely just jump off my couch. I started yelling, and good for that guy, man. And he's very, very young too. I think he's 22, 23. So that was a decent fight. Awesome comeback though. And then Benitez versus Bendene. Look, man, there's a lot of Hispanic fighters on this card, so I'm going to butcher some of these names, okay? I'm a white boy. I'm trying to figure it out, okay? But, yeah, that was cool. Benitez basically slammed him on his head, and you could see his opponent get stunned, and then Benitez just kind of smashed him, knocked him out. Next two fights I want to talk about got completely wrong. The first one, I thought Brandon Moreno would definitely beat Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja went up there and really looked like a mini Dos Anjos, just crisp. Awesome leg kicks, awesome boxing, stayed in the pocket, was landing good shots, not really getting hit too much, just beat up Moreno pretty bad. Then Zach Cummings and Prazeres. I picked Cummings to win this fight. I got this one wrong. Cummings looked a little bit hesitant. I didn't like that. And Prazeres, he's a tank at 172. He moved up from 155 to 170, and that dude is built like the Hulk. But he definitely took advantage of Zach Cummings looking a bit hesitant and ended up pulling out a split decision, which I agreed with. I actually didn't think that it was a split decision. I had it clear 2-1 Prazeres, but you never know what those judges are looking at. And then Luque versus Chad Laprise. Luque knocked him out. That was cool. That was a beautiful. Macedo versus Lee. Lee made her UFC debut. She looked good, won a unanimous decision, but she looked very, very, very good. Alexa Grasso versus Tatiana Suarez. It kind of went as I said in the last episode. I thought Suarez's grappling would be the X factor. I thought Alexa Grasso's striking was better, and I still think it is, but Tatiana Suarez, she's a stud. Took her down, wins via rear naked choke. And then the main event, Damian Maia versus Kamaru Usman. Damian Maia came in on short notice to fight Usman. Usman originally was supposed to fight Santiago Ponzinibbio, but Ponzinibbio got injured. Damian Maia comes in on, I believe, 3 weeks' notice, maybe 4 weeks' notice. And, man, a lot of people thought this was a boring fight, including some of my close friends and colleagues, but I did not think this was a boring fight. I thought it was good to see Usman dominate all 5 rounds. It definitely wasn't boring like his last fight against Emil Mech, but he dominated all 5 rounds. I think 2 of the judges gave Maia 1 round, but he completely dominated Maia for at least 4 rounds. And I think he said he broke his one hand in the second round. He said he broke the other hand in the third round. So it sucks for Maia, man, because he's coming off 3 losses right now. He didn't get it done against Woodley, and then whenever he faces these top level wrestlers, I saw a stat, or I heard of a stat, that he was like 1 for 54 in his takedowns in his last 3 fights. But when you give this guy elite level wrestlers, and his jiu-jitsu is out of this world, arguably some of the best in the UFC, and in all of mixed martial arts. But yeah, man, when you're facing these top level wrestlers, it's a whole different ball game. So there's that. There's Damian Maia, Kamaru Usman. I don't know what's next for Usman right now, because the welterweight division is in a weird spot, which I'll get into a little bit later. But we all know this, with the interim title that's coming up at UFC 225 between Rafael Dos Anjos and Colby Covington. And then you have Kamaru Usman, who is ranked number 7, and he just beat Maia, who I believe was ranked number 4. Then you have Wonder Boy ranked number 1. It's just, there's so many good fights to make right now, but the UFC has to be careful, and I've spoke about this time and time again. They have to be careful not to kill their stars. Do not give these young studs, don't put them against each other yet. Don't put them against absolute world beaters yet. Let them build up their name a little bit, because it does everyone a service in the long run. So that covers UFC Chile. So now I guess we'll get into some current events. So Ariel Helwani, he's leaving MMA fighting, and he is going to ESPN. He's going to be on a podcast, on a show of some sort. I'm assuming it's a podcast with Chael Sonnen. So I think the title of the podcast is Ariel Helwani, or Ariel and the Bad Guy. That'll be interesting. I love Ariel. This isn't really fight news, but I love Ariel. That guy is a pioneer for guys like me that like talking about the sport. And it should make a very good duo between Ariel and Chael Sonnen. All right, up next. This just happened really as I was hitting the record button. Fabricio Verdum fails a USADA test, and this happened literally hours ago. So I'm bummed because I like Verdum, but am I surprised? No. Not that I'm saying I thought Verdum was doing anything wrong. I'm just saying USADA catches everybody, even for unintentional stuff, for trace amounts of stuff. You hear it all the time. Some of the nicest guys in the business get busted. It's just what happens. I hope that nothing negative comes to fruition, but I would not be surprised. I spoke about it earlier. Bellator 200 was supposed to be headlined by Roy Nelson and Mirko Krokop. Mirko, I believe, suffered a knee injury, so that will now be headlined by Gegard Mousasi and Carvalho. So that'll be interesting. It sucks to see Krokop out, though. I was looking forward to seeing him back. He is a true pioneer of the sport. Speaking of pioneers, Ian McCall announced his retirement on one Ariel Helwani's show. I know I'm giving a lot of people that do what I do a lot of credit. But regardless, Ian McCall, he retires. He's coming off 2 losses. He started his career, his resurgence back in Ryzen in Japan recently, and didn't go his way. The first one was a weird one where his head got cut on the rope, and then this last one ended within like 10 seconds. He got clipped. I thought it was an early stoppage, but he got clipped, and it was ruled a TKO. And then he just came out and said, you know what, I'm done. I've done a lot for the sport, which he has. He's, especially for 125, 135-pound weight division, that man has done a lot. And all of those flyweights and bantamweights are, have a lot of credit to give to that guy, because he's a true fighter's fighter. And it's good to see him retire now before it takes a turn for the absolute worst. It's not a bad thing to go out on 2 losses. You'd rather see him go off on a win, but that's all right. So shout out to Ian McCall, one of my favorites. And I'm going to talk about this next one every single podcast until it's eventually dead. I don't think there's any more news about it, but I'm just saying it because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired about hearing about this. Chuck versus Tito 3. Stop it. Please, both of you, stay retired. So this has to do with UFC 225. Curtis Blades and Alistair Overeem, 2 of the best heavyweights, in the world right now. They are on that card, and they got bumped from the main card. And this is a main card fight. Both are top 10 guys. They got bumped from the main card to the prelims, and CM Punk and Mike Jackson remain on the main card. I guess it could be a good thing for Fox Sports 1 to have Blades versus Overeem headline that. It gets more viewers on free TV, but it's still a little bit insulting that 2 0-1 guys, one is an MMA journalist and the other is a ex-professional wrestler, are going to be on the pay-per-view. That's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what more to say. I'm so frustrated with it that I don't know what I can say. Man, I had to save the worst for last, and I completely did this unintentionally. I hate doing this. UFC 224, so that was Nunes versus Pennington in Rio de Janeiro. Early reports coming out that it only did 85,000 pay-per-view buys, which if that's true, would be the lowest in a 10-year span. And it was a great card, and that's what bumps me out. And if you listen to what I said before, and I've said this time and time again, they are not pushing Amanda Nunes the way that they should. There's a market there, and they are not doing it. This is your next Brazilian, phenom. Obviously, you have Chris Cyborg, too, but, you've got Amanda Nunes, who has beat the former consensus greatest woman fighter of all time in Ronda Rousey. You got her out of there in a minute. And, she's lesbian, and take it for what it's worth. I think there's a market to build there, and I don't think that they're doing it. They're giving her no push at all. And then the UFC probably is wondering, how did this happen? Well, you created this problem. You have one of the best pound-for-pound fighters ever, and you are not giving her the push that she deserves. And this is what happens. You don't break 100,000 buys. I thought this would do better. I thought it would maybe break 200,000. Definitely didn't think that it would do less than 100,000. That's just a bummer, though. It sucks. So if this is all true, I hope the UFC learns their lesson. I really do. Because this is a serious, serious problem. All right. With that said, it is interview time. So I got to talk a few days ago with David Feldman. He is the CEO, owner, promoter, head honcho, HMFIC of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Hope you guys enjoy. So right now we're being joined on the podcast by David Feldman. He is the owner, main promoter of Bare Knuckle Boxing that I really want to get into. How are you, man? Thanks for calling in.
I'm doing well, Austin. Thanks for having us.
So I don't want to ask cookie cutter questions. I want you to just tell us your story. How did it start? Where are you now? And everything in between.
This started about 2009. We had the idea to I was promoting a boxer named Bobby Gunn. He's a gypsy traveler, and he was telling me about how they settled their family scores and did all the different families did bare knuckle fights in the fields, and they bet on them, and that's how they settled. That's how they settled their score. So he fought for me a couple times professionally as a professional boxer. And then we got to be pretty good friends, and I learned a little bit more about his heritage and about how bare knuckle fighting was working with their, with all their families and how it worked back there in England and Ireland and everything. I got really intrigued, and I said, I'm gonna turn this into a real sport. I'm gonna promote an event. And he was like, "You're crazy, man. There's no chance you can do this." So in August 5th, 2011, about a year and a half after we started talking, promoted our first legal bare knuckle fight, but it was not sanctioned or regulated. So it wasn't sanctioned or regulated by any government agency, the state athletic commission or anything, but it was on an Indian reservation at the Fort McDowell Casino in Arizona. So we did an event there. It was an MMA card with a bare knuckle fight as the main event, which was Bobby Gunn versus Richie Stewart from Delaware. And the event drew over 5,000 people. We turned people away. But the real part why we're even here today is 1.2 million people logged in to purchase it on the internet, but internet streaming and the paywall were very new back then. So the paywall actually crashed and we didn't get paid anything.
What?
But yeah, man, I mean, I might not have been here today, who knows where we would have been. But here's the thing is I know that within 44 minutes, 1.2 million people were interested in watching that. So I struggled for 8 years now to get this thing legal, regulated, and sanctioned. That's the big part, because you can do this legal in some parts, and some people are doing it legal where it's not illegal, but the government frowns upon it. This is actually the first legal, sanctioned, and regulated bare knuckle fighting event ever in the history of combat sports. So even when John L. Sullivan was doing it, it was legal, but it wasn't sanctioned and regulated. So this is actually the first legal, sanctioned, and regulated bare knuckle fight in the history of combat sports. So it's kind of really, really special. So we pushed our way through this for 8 years, got turned down by 28 states. They just didn't see the vision. They had a perception that this was a backyard street fight, that this was the field type of fighting that they were doing that they saw online, but they didn't have the vision that I had about making this a real sport, a real combat sport. And I think it's going to be able to rival some of the bigger organizations out there. So finally, I met a gentleman from Wyoming, Brian Pedersen, who is the chairman of the Wyoming Combative Sports Board. And he saw my vision. He knew that they were doing fights in Wyoming already. They were doing legal fights there, but they weren't sanctioned or regulated. And, I just talked to him. I told him, I watched some of them. I said, somebody's going to really get hurt doing this. This needs to be sanctioned and regulated here. And since you're already doing them, I think it's a lot easier for you to put the regulation on it, because it's already happening here in Wyoming. And he said, I couldn't agree more. I want to be the first. I'm with you, and let's do this. So they voted it in on the athletic commission, and then they brought it to the governor's office, and he signed off on it. So here we are, 9.5 years in the making, and we're about to make combat sports history. June 2nd, Cheyenne, Wyoming, live on pay-per-view television, the same big channel that you watch the UFC, that you watch Mayweather fights. It's that channel. So, for us to even be on that platform is very humbling for us to even be mentioned in the same breath as any of these bigger organizations. So, we're here, and we have some some of the best fighters in the world that are fighting. Former UFC heavyweight champion Rico Rodriguez, former UFC legend Phil, the New York badass Baroni, former Special Forces U.S. Army veteran, former Bellator heavyweight tournament winner, and fought for the World Championship. Eric Prindle, he'll be in the heavyweight tournament. Maurice Jackson, 38-2 K1 fighter. Dale Soapy, really tough fighter, up and coming guy out of Hawaii. Arnold Adams trains with Floyd Mayweather. DJ Linderman, former gatekeeper for Bellator and for the World Series of Fighting. Lewis Rumsey, actually from our home state of Pennsylvania, a badass Muay Thai guy. We also have I don't know if you know this, but Wyoming is the first state in the country to give women the right to vote. So because of that, we thought it was only fitting to put a woman's bare knuckle fight on this card as well.
Rawlings.
Beck Rawlings. I mean, she's amazing. She's a tough girl. But here's another little unique twist to this: is now she's fighting a local girl right from Denver, about an hour away. But she's a police officer and she's a professional boxer, Alma Garcia. So this is going to be a war. It's going to be an unbelievable fight, and it has a little bit of story to it because we have former UFC exciting fighter Beck Rawlings fighting a local girl. So I think everybody's buzzing about this fight. I mean, everywhere I go, they're buzzing about how did you get this? And look, there's good and bad. People are saying someone's going to die. This is the worst thing ever. This is the best thing ever. I can't wait to see it. But you know what? It's everybody that's going to be a fan of this because they're all going to watch it. They're all going to watch it. And I guarantee after the fight, they're all going to say, when's the next event? And that's what we're aiming for. We know that this first event, because we can't show them highlights of our last fight because the last one, everyone was dead. You know what I mean? No one was alive for the last time they did this. So, it's an uphill fight in promoting this, but I think we're getting the message out there. I think a lot of people are talking about it, and I really think a lot of people are excited to see this.
So I've got a few questions for you just from, what you just told me.
Cool.
Could you explain the difference between the legal aspect and the sanction aspect?
So being legal means you can do a fight. It means it's not against the law. It's not written in the law that says bare knuckle fighting is illegal. But being sanctioned and regulated is a big deal because what it actually means is, first of all, it's safe for the fighters because there are rules and regulations that they have to go by, medical testing. But the government is regulating it, so they're not going to let anything happen. And by being sanctioned and regulated, it gave us the ability to get on pay-per-view television. Like we could have done the internet anywhere in the world. You could have done it from your basement. But to be on pay-per-view television, that's a big deal. And the only way that was happening was by being sanctioned and regulated by a state organization. And we are. And that's really the big deal here.
Okay. Appreciate that because honestly, I mean, I guess that was a more common sense answer than I thought it would be.
No, a lot of people don't know what regulated or if it's legal. What does it mean it's not sanctioned? I get that. Actually, that was a great question to ask because you probably cleared it up for a lot of people because they're probably saying if it's legal, well, then what's the big deal?
Right.
Okay, so it's legal meaning it wasn't written in the books that you're breaking the law, but it also wasn't written in the books that the rules and regulations are governed by the state. Now they are.
So how do we order this? This isn't to wrap it up. Just curious.
You just go to check your local listings. Actually, on Monday, all the ads are starting to come out on the pay-per-view channel. But whatever channel you have, we're on everywhere. We're everywhere. We're on DirecTV, Dish Network, In Demand, Ubiquity, Cox Cable. Any household in the United States that has cable. Any household in the United States or Canada that has cable, they can order it on their pay-per-view channel. Whatever pay-per-view channel on your cable system that airs the pay-per-view events, that's the one that you go to. And it'll be out there. And if you go to our website, bareknuckle.tv, and you scroll down a little bit and you click, it'll tell you what channel it's on.
How much is this going to run us, David?
It's pretty cheap. I think for the quality of fighters that we have, we came out of the gate that we wanted a lot of people to watch it. And we couldn't do a cheap price tag like $10 because, we wouldn't cover any of our expenses. So $29.99, I think it's very affordable for everybody to watch it. So, we're not price gouging anybody. This is great. $29.99, you can watch 12 bare knuckle fights. I mean, that's, you get a lot of value for it. 12 sanctioned, legal, and regulated bare knuckle fights for the first time in history.
Okay, so question for you, since you're the wizard behind this whole thing. Are you an MMA fan?
I love MMA.
Okay.
I have to be honest. I'm more of a boxing fan only because I grew up in boxing. I was a professional boxer. My brother was a professional boxer. My dad was a professional boxer. My father trained 7 world champions. He's in the Boxing Hall of Fame. So love boxing.
Are you concerned at all because you're going to draw by taking a lot of MMA fighters, current or former, you're obviously going to your goal is to bring some of that market over, I would assume,
Sure.
as well as the boxing community. Do you have concerns that MMA purists or boxing purists are going to look at this and say, this is human cockfighting like they used to say in '93 about the UFC?
Yeah, actually, I welcome that. I welcome that statement, and I would actually like more people to come out and tell me that it's human cockfighting, and because I think what that's going to do is that's going to create more of a buzz right now, more of an interest. But when they watch it, they're going to know it's anything but human cockfighting, and it's actually the safest form of hand-to-hand combat and the purest form of hand-to-hand combat allowed by law. Like, it's the purest thing out there. Mano a mano with bare knuckles versus bare knuckles. It's the purest thing out there, but it's the safest because you're not taking the continued head trauma that you would take with gloves. So with gloves, like, let's just say that I told you, because you're not a boxer, so I'm going to tell you as I pitch athletic commissions, I'm going to give you 2 examples. Number one is I'm going to say, if I was to give you a boxing glove on and tell you to punch a wall, you'd probably punch it pretty hard. Now I'm going to tell you to take that glove off and punch the wall. You're probably going to punch it about 50%.
You deal with a lot of hand injuries, of course.
Well, you don't. So that's a misconception. The thing is they think you deal with a lot of hand injuries. You only deal with a lot of bruised knuckles because you are hitting something hard. But these guys that know how to fight, they know how to hold their fist, and they know how to deliver a punch. So you are absolutely going to have a little bit more hand injuries that you do with glove boxing or MMA, but it's not astronomical at all. And they are going to get cut in this sport. Absolutely. They're going to get more nicks, but they're not the deep, wide cuts. The deep, wide cuts are actually caused by the leather. When the leather busts it open and then it hits the skin, the leather, when the punch turns, actually opens and deepens the cut. The knuckle doesn't do that. So there's a lot of misconceptions, and that's why I welcome the human cockfighting. Bring it on.
And that's not my standpoint. I'm just an MMA fan, a boxing fan, and I know what the critics are going to say. It's always the trolls on the internet that have more to say than the actual fans.
I get it.
They have a louder voice.
I get it, Austin. I get it every day. I get it on all our Facebook posts. So just let me tell you the kind of traction we're getting. We put a video out that says, what is bare knuckle fighting? We made it ourselves, and we put it out on the internet. As of today, we're at 5.8, and I'm telling you, this is in 10 days, 5.8 million views on this. So the interest is there. I mean, these people are watching this. They're hungry for it. Look, 25 years ago in Denver, Colorado, an hour away from Cheyenne, Wyoming, the UFC debuted. 25 years later, the next era in combat sports is here. A new era in combat sports, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships, makes its debut June 2nd in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I'm telling you, we are going to shock the world, because everybody's going to have a way different opinion on this when they turn it off, and they're going to ask, when is the next one? And they're going to say, oh, man, I got to wait till September. But, yeah, you're going to have to wait till September.
I like it. So a few more questions that I have for you, if you have the time.
Sure.
What does the picture look like of getting these fighters? Because it's not like you're taking some guys off the streets, right? You have Rico Rodriguez, you have Beck Rawlings, you've got a plethora of legit world-class level fighters. What is the process of reaching out to them and selling them on being a part of your promotion?
Great question, Austin. Doesn't happen. I don't reach out to anybody. They all reached out to me. Everyone.
Oh, he's a stud. All right.
I'm telling you, it was crazy when they made the announcement. 6,000 emails came in of people that wanted to fight. And we just had to weed out who was the right guy. The only one I reached out to, because I knew him from the past and I thought he would be a great fit, was Rico Rodriguez. Everybody else reached out and wanted to be a part of this. Why? Because they're going to be a pioneer. They're going to be in the beginning of something. So these guys that are in the mix of their careers, they're not world champions anymore, and they're probably not going to be again in their respective combat sport. Now they get a chance not to be in the mix of MMA or in the mix of boxing. They get a chance to be bare knuckle fighting. They are it. They're the pioneers now. So they're jumping for this. I mean, it's a great opportunity for everybody involved. It truly is. And the other thing is that a lot of people don't know about this underground bare knuckle circuit that's going on. There's underground bare knuckle fights in every major city in the entire country. People don't know. 10, 12 a year. Now we're going to give these guys a chance to come out from the underground and support their families on things that they're doing in an unsafe environment. Now it comes to a safe environment where it's regulated. There's medical testing. There's doctors, ambulances, everything they need. Now they can actually earn a living for their family doing what they do best. So a lot of people don't know about that side of it. And that's why we felt it was so important to get this regulated and sanctioned and all the medicals for it.
What are the rules? Do you have rounds? Do you have time limits to the rounds? Do you have cut men?
So let me go from the beginning. We developed the most innovative fighting platform of our time. We truly did. It's the squared circle. It's a 26-foot square with a 22-foot circle ring. The ropes are circled. It's unbelievable. When you see it, it's going to blow your mind. It's a circle ring. The first time ever in history that anyone's seen a ring like this. It's a circle ring. The fighters will toe the line. So there'll be 2 4-foot lines, 3 foot from each other in the center of the ring. They'll put their front foot on the line. The referee will then say knuckle up. The fighters will then start punching. Punches are the only offensive weapon allowed. However, in a clinch, if my left arm's clinched with your right arm in a clinch, we can punch with the open hand. If there's a 3-second lull in action with no punches, the referee will then break them and make them start again. Also, there's a thing called a Muay Thai clinch. When you're in close and you grab the back of an opponent's neck, you can now punch, pull the head into punches. So that's the offense on this. There is no kicks, no knees, no grappling, no elbows, no grappling on the ground. None of that stuff. It's punches. It's basically what we call dirty boxing. It's dirty bare knuckle boxing. But it's going to be super exciting. We added the clinch element in because bare knuckle boxing, if you've ever seen it in the past, it can tend to be a little bit boring because when they get in, they grab real quick. Well, now when they grab, they can punch their way out.
That makes sense.
So it's pretty exciting. It just added another element of excitement to this. But it's basically, it's a stand-up fight, and punches are the only offensive weapon allowed. So, it's bare knuckle boxing with a twist.
Are there rounds?
There are 5 2-minute rounds for the guys that are just starting out in this. Guys are a little more experienced. There's 7 2-minute rounds, and then championships, which we won't have until December because we're building all of our own champions. We're not just crowning them. We're doing tournaments for all the champions. This one happens to be the heavyweight we're starting off with, but there'll be 9 2-minute rounds. And if it goes 9 2-minute rounds, you can imagine the kind of action you're going to have on these fights. So, I don't anticipate too many championship fights to go to distance.
So since you're doing a tournament, and in previous episodes on this podcast, I've had an issue with is the way that Bellator is doing their heavyweight tournament.
Right.
It's a little, you kind of get disconnected from it because it's a year-long tournament before you get one champion, and it's kind of hard to keep up with. Are you guys accelerating that at all, or
we're doing
the model?
The quarterfinal on this fight, semifinal on the next fight, and the finals on the next fight.
Perfect.
And then the next fight in September will be the next weight division's quarterfinal, semifinal in December, and then finals the following year. And then in December, it'll be the finals of the heavyweight tournament, semifinals of the other tournament, and then the quarterfinals of the next weight. We're building all our own champions, and I think this is a great marketing tool as well because now you can follow these fighters as they're growing and as they're actually becoming great bare knuckle fighters.
And what weight divisions do you guys have?
We have all the same weight divisions as the modified MMA. So we go down from 115, which we're not really going to have anybody in there, 125, 135, 145, 155, 165, 175, 190. And then here's where it gets a little different. Heavyweight is 220.
Thank God.
220. 220 to 265, and then super heavyweight is 265 and up.
Thank God.
Yeah.
The way the UFC is structured right now, I cannot stand the the weight difference between 185 and 205, and then anywhere from 205 to 265. It seems a bit ridiculous. I'd love to see a 220 in there, or something in between.
Absolutely. We just want to get more opportunities for more fighters on a more level playing field. Got
it. So I know you have a show to promote tonight, so I'm going to get you out of here. Tell us.
All right, let me close. If you don't mind, yeah, I was going to say, if you don't mind, Austin, let me close with my plug. If you're in the Denver, Colorado, northern Colorado, Wyoming area, you can get tickets. This is history in the making. If you look back and you were at 25 years ago at the Denver Coliseum in Denver, Colorado, and look back on where it evolved to now, you'd be one happy camper. Don't miss this chance to be at this event live as history is being made and history takes place. June 2nd at the Cheyenne Ice and Event Center in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Tickets are available at bareknuckle.tv. They are selling very, very fast, but there are some left. We want to fill that whole arena up. bareknuckle.tv, and you can watch it pay-per-view in the United States or Canada. Just check your local listings on all the major cable outlets. And if you're outside of the United States or Canada, you can watch it on fight.tv. That's the app. It's the same price, but you can watch it on the app anywhere in the entire world.
And where can they find you guys on social media?
Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship on Facebook, and then Bare Knuckle FC Instagram, Bare Knuckle FC Twitter. So Bare Knuckle FC Twitter, Bare Knuckle FC Instagram, and Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship on our Facebook, and that's where you're going to find a lot of the information and all the updates. And the fight card actually is getting thrown out there tomorrow, so everybody tune in to that. You'll see the complete fight card on the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship Facebook tomorrow.
Awesome, David. Thanks for calling in, man.
Thanks so much for having me, Austin. Have a great.
All right, brother. Have a good night. All right, there it was, David Feldman from Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. I hope to get some of his fighters on after the big show. That'd be really cool. But he definitely knows what he's doing. He's definitely an intelligent guy. So get that pay-per-view, $30. I know I will be on June 2nd. So I'm really excited. And thank you for him calling in. So at least it gave me a better understanding about what exactly he's doing, what the market that he's trying to open up. All right, let's talk about Bellator 200 and UFC Liverpool. Time to make some picks, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about Bellator 200, and then we'll go into UFC Liverpool. Both good cards, honestly, I think. Not great, but, I think Bellator overall, Bellator 200 is a better card, but I think that UFC Liverpool definitely has the better headliner. All right, so 3 fights that I want to talk about is Phil Davis, Clint Massell. I will take Phil Davis via unanimous decision. I think he takes him down because that's what he does, smashes him, holds him there. And I think he gets it done via unanimous decision. David Rickles versus MVP Michael Page. MVP, I will take. Yeah, I'll take Michael Page, second round KO, and I think it's brutal too. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another flying knee that does a lot of damage, or I think he knocks him out. Then Rafael Carvalho and Gegard Mousasi. God, Mousasi didn't look great in his last fight, but, he is the champ, so you got to give that guy his due. I will take Mousasi, third round KO, but would not be surprised if Carvalho gets it done. Would not be surprised at all. After that fight, if Mousasi wins that fight, I'd love to see Rory McDonald move up to 185 to see if he can capture that belt. There's some other good fighters on there. Anastasia Yankova, she's a stud. There's Charlie Ward, he's on that card. So there's some good fights. That is Friday on Paramount Network. So definitely watch that. Good weekend of fights, too. So now let's talk about UFC Liverpool. Remember, this is going on Sunday in the daytime, which I like the early fights because I can still enjoy my Sunday night. So it kind of frees things up. Here we go. All right. Not, like I said earlier, not a whole lot of great names on here, but I'll talk about the ones I'm really interested in. Nordine Taleb. If you haven't seen this guy, he's French. He is... you ever look at someone in mixed martial arts and say, there's no way that guy weighs 170 pounds because he looks like he weighs 215 pounds? That's Nordine Taleb. He's a stud. He is fighting Claudio Silva. I will take Nordine Taleb, the third round KO. Jason Knight versus Makwan Amirkhani. Man, where has Amirkhani been? I feel like he hasn't fought in a while. Hasn't fought since last year. Jason Knight coming off of a few losses, but you can never count that guy out. He's a stud, but I will take Amirkhani. Man, just because Jason Knight is tough as hell, I will take Amirkhani via unanimous decision, but I think that's a great fight. Then Neil Magny, he's fighting Craig White. So Neil Magny was supposed to fight Gunnar Nelson originally, and I was super pumped about that fight. That would be the number 9 welterweight in Neil Magny. And I think Gunnar Nelson's ranked number 12 maybe, but I know he's in the top 15. Craig White coming in. The UFC doesn't even have a picture for him. His nickname is the Thundercat, so Craig, let's talk about that sometime. Let's do better. They don't have a picture for him, so for sure get that guy a picture instead of just a black silhouette. But I will take Neil Magny, probably unanimous decision. That guy is tough for anyone. He's 6'3", has an 80-inch reach, and he's at 170. So he has the opportunity to outbox really anybody in that division. Oh, gosh, here's the one. Stephen Thompson and Darren Till. I still haven't made up my mind while I'm talking about this, but I have to give you guys a pick. So Stephen Thompson, his only losses come from Woodley and Matt Brown. And then the first fight with Woodley, it came to a draw. But, man, in his current state, I wouldn't be surprised if Woodley's the only one that can beat him. Darren Till, he's... Four wins, 1 draw, no losses in the UFC. I think the UFC is being a bit premature by letting him fight Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I get this is the first UFC event in Liverpool, which is Darren Till's territory. I get all that. I just have an issue with the UFC killing off their stars. Not killing them off, but if Darren Till goes out there and loses very convincingly to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, you just took his hype and you just took it all away from him. I wish they would have gave him one more fight. He's still young. He's only 25, 26 years old. I would have liked to see him get one more fight. But I guess I have to stop dancing around it right now. And Stephen Thompson, man, this is tough. I will take Darren Till via 4th round TKO. I think his pressure will get it done. I think that Darren Till, in a 5-round fight, in a main event fight, all that does is give him more time to find an opening in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's game. So I will take Till via TKO 4th round, and he is the underdog. I think he's a fairly heavy underdog too, which is fitting. So I will take Till, but I will not be surprised if Thompson outpoints him and it goes 5 rounds or KOs him. And if either of these fighters take it to the ground, I'm gonna be pissed because it's a fun one on the feet. All right, so here we go. Got to talk to David Feldman from Bare Knuckle Fighting. That great guy. Hope I get to talk to him again. Covered UFC Chile. Got our current events done. Got our picks done. Guys, please continue to keep up the good work. It means a lot. We've been doing this for 5-6 weeks now. We've got 200 downloads on Apple Podcast. And then we've got 240 views on all of our videos on YouTube and 21 subscribers. So, almost pushing 450, downloads and views in 5 or 6 weeks. I call that success. I know I've mentioned him before. I was on his show. Eric Allen, he is the owner, CEO of Top Rated MMA. He runs a great show. Go check him out. He will be on my show for the UFC 225 preview. If you go to his website and go to the drop-down menu and go to Our Friends, he was nice enough to put the concussion discussion on there. So, Eric, thank you for the feature. Shout out again to the North 41 for letting us use their awesome music. I appreciate it, guys. And then, seriously, a huge thanks to my producer and his wonderful wife, Jessie. So, Jessie she put together the name, and now she's putting together our new episode upload that you will see with this. So, shout out to her. And thanks for David. Thanks for all that he does. So, that covers that. I'll get off my soapbox. Hope you guys enjoy your week. More importantly, I hope you enjoy the fights, big fights, and please check out Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship June 2nd. Until next week, you guys be good to each other. Cheers.